Every part you create in SolidWorks will begin with a 2D sketch. Notice, right now in the status bar, that I'm in Editing Part mode. There are two modes that we'll be working with: Editing Part mode and Editing Sketch mode. The status bar is a good way to know which of the two modes you are currently working in. Let's begin by creating a new sketch. One method in doing so is by simply clicking on the sketch icon located here in the sketch toolbar. I'll show you a couple of other methods a little later. When I click the new sketch icon, SolidWorks asks me to choose a plane on which to create a sketch for the part. So which sketch plane should I choose? Well, in the first lesson, we saw right away how two approaches could be used to create the exact same geometry. In one approach, a wide rectangle was sketched on the top plane and extruded up, and in the second approach, a thin rectangle was sketched on the front plane and extruded to create the width of the shape. Many SolidWorks parts can be created in multiple ways, so it's really up to you to choose the sketch plane that makes the most sense based on your design intent. For now, I'll choose the top plane, and when I do, notice how SolidWorks rotates the graphics area so that we're looking straight at the sketch, or to put it in SolidWorks terms, we're looking normal to the sketch. Notice in the status bar, SolidWorks now tells us that I'm editing sketch 1, so I know that I'm in Edit Sketch mode. You can also tell we're in Edit Sketch mode from these couple icons that appear, which I'll go over a little later. If we look over at the Feature Manager tree, you can see that a new sketch was created, sketch 1 in this case, and I'm essentially ready to start creating our 2D geometry. Before I do, I want to show you a couple other approaches of getting in and out of Edit Sketch mode. I'll first quickly sketch a few circles here. Once I've completed doing that, I'll click on the Exit Sketch button. When I do, you can see the sketch geometry as well as the sketch in the Feature Manager tree, and you can also see I'm back in Editing Part mode. Since I'm in Editing Part mode, I can't change any of the geometry that I created in the sketch. If I wanted to make changes to the sketch, I have to get back into Editing Sketch mode. To do this, I can click on the sketch from the feature tree and select Edit Sketch. Notice that I'm now editing sketch 1, and the familiar sketch icons appear once more. At this point, I can modify the geometry or move it. And I can even add additional geometry if I wanted to. If I press the D key to bring confirmation corner to my cursor and select the Exit Sketch button once more, I'm back in Editing Part mode. I'll click again on the sketch and select Edit Sketch. I'll make a couple changes here. And I'll sketch one more rectangle. We saw how exiting the sketch with this icon puts us back into Editing Part mode and saves all the changes that we made. This red X icon, the cancel icon, will discard any changes that we just made. Be careful of this. If I click on the red X, now SolidWorks prompts me that the sketch will revert to the state it was in before I started editing it. Let's see what happens here when I click it. I'll click Discard Changes and Exit, and you can see the sketch reverted back to the state it was in before I edited the sketch. Now that you are a bit more familiar with how to get in and out of editing sketch, let me show you one other approach for creating new sketches. In the first approach, I used the New Sketch icon, but I'd like to show you one shortcut that experienced SolidWorks users often use to save time. When I used the New Sketch icon, SolidWorks prompted me to choose which plane I was going to sketch on. There's actually a shortcut to doing this in just a single click. Now, I had originally created the first sketch on the top plane. What if I wanted to create a sketch on the front plane? Well, I could select the New Sketch icon and then choose the front plane. But since I already know I'm going to sketch on the front plane, I can simply click on the front plane from the feature tree, and from the context toolbar that appears above my cursor, I'll click the Sketch icon, and a new sketch is automatically created on this plane. You can see from the status bar and from these icons in the upper right-hand corner that I'm again put in Editing Sketch mode, and you can see that I'm editing Sketch 2. When I created the first sketch, Remember how SolidWorks rotated the view so that we were looking straight on or normal to the sketch? When I created my second sketch here, it didn't automatically rotate us to look straight on with the front sketch plane. This is perfectly fine, and you can sketch geometry on the front plane without looking straight on the plane. But I think it's always a good idea to look normal to the sketch plane to get an accurate picture of the part. To do this, I'll press the spacebar key on my keyboard to bring up the View Orientation window, where I can choose many of my default orientations as well as the Normal to view. In this case, I know that I'm sketching on the front plane, but as a rule of thumb, it's always safer to click Normal to, so that you know you're looking straight on to the sketch plane. So when I click the Normal to view option, SolidWorks rotates the graphics area so that I'm looking straight onto the sketch plane, and I can continue sketching geometry.